Tons of Battlefield Labs gameplay has leaked online, revealing pretty much the entire testing experience if you're curious about it. And today I'm going to break down everything we've learned from that leaked footage. Of course, I cannot show that actual gameplay due to it being under NDA, but it is all over the internet if you want to find it for yourself. Let's talk about everything we've learned from it. So, one of the more important elements of a Battlefield game is simply how it feels to run around, interact with things, get in and out of vehicles. If that's not right, then it doesn't feel like a Battlefield game. And based on the leaked footage, it shows a lot of physicality to the animations, and DICE have brought back some of the movement stuff from Battlefield 5, like rolling when falling. But unlike Battlefield 5, you don't appear to be constantly locked into lengthy animations whenever you interact with something. Getting in and out of vehicles is quick with a very fast transition. It also doesn't look like you have to directly interact with ammo or health crates. DICE have even brought back a feature that was cut from Battlefield 5 before launch that lets you drag down teammates to safety before you revive them. I'm actually curious to see how many people use this feature versus just reviving people out in the middle of the open, which is the classic Battlefield approach. Now, the gunplay and some of the other movement systems is where things start to look a little bit more Battlefield 2042. DICE have implemented a new recoil system that makes the guns always point wherever the recoil is kicking. So if you shoot and the recoil makes your shot go up and to the right, your gun model will also angle up and to the right. But generally speaking, the weapon handling and firing animations have that clean and punchy look that I'm most used to from 2042. But it does look like a step up from that game. Something that stood out to me is that the soldiers seem to run a bit slower than they have in the recent Battlefield games. Obviously, that perception can be changed quite a bit based on field of view and all that kind of stuff, but it does almost look like they're going for the BF3 or Battlefield 4 soldier movement speed. There doesn't seem to be that second tactical sprint that races your gun and lets you run slightly faster for a brief time. And as an old school Battlefield fan, I'd be totally fine with that. Tactical sprint just seemed like a requirement because other games were doing it, but I never felt like it added that much to Battlefield and kind of gummed up some of the movement controls. Now, probably the biggest shakeup to the gameplay is the introduction of field specs. These are 4 class-specific character upgrades you earn via XP during a match. The first 3 options seem to give your class passive upgrades, while the last tier is an active option that you enable for a temporary boost. The Assault, for example, gets Grenadier at tier 1, Flak at tier 2, Gadget Reload at tier 3, and finally Heavy Flak at tier 4. And they do what you might expect, especially if you're used to Battlefield 4 system. Carry more grenades, extra resistance to explosive damage, faster gadget reloads, and the Heavy Flak can be activated for a temporary extreme damage resistance against explosives. Maybe that'll save you from C4 being tossed at your feet or something like that. Now, past Battlefield games have had variations of this system with squad upgrades or character class perks. The other classes didn't have stuff that seemed quite as powerful as the Assault tier 4, but they still get some pretty big bonuses. Support gets an active medic, which turns them into a walking supply crate for a limited time. Recon gets a mortar strike that they can call in at tier 4. This reminds me a lot of Bad Company 2. And at tier 3, they get the kill shot perk that prevents enemies from getting revived if they get a headshot kill. I actually really like this idea and always wanted something like that to be added to Battlefield. And finally, the Engineer gets a thermite drone that they can deploy that acts like an anti-vehicle EMP. Now, due to the extremely early state of the game and lots of things being placeholder and white box, it's hard to say how many of these perks or abilities will even make it to the final build. I do hope that DICE avoids doing stuff where players can get armor plates to increase their health pool or anything like that. It's never really been my favorite in past Battlefield games where players can have different health amounts, and it leads to more inconsistency during firefights. But that's just my personal pet peeve, or wish list rather, for the game. I'd also be curious to see if DICE is planning to let us customize our class upgrade paths and whether or not they're going to factor some of these perks and abilities into a progression tree. So when you start off the game, maybe you don't have the best tier 4 perk, but you can get the artillery strike or something like that if you rank up your recon class really high. That said, having an active ability that you can progress towards does sound a bit too in line with kill streaks, so hopefully DICE can adjust the timing of it so that once you unlock something like an artillery strike, you're not constantly raining it down on people and It just turns into a kill streak type game mode. Now, something that has always been a focus point whenever a new Battlefield game launches is just how much content is available on launch day. So far, it seems like there isn't exactly a ton of weapons to choose from in the Battlefield Labs test. And the weapons appear like they can be equipped by all the classes, which does increase the overall weapon variety regardless of what class you pick, but it also makes some of the classes feel less unique. I would imagine some of that's going to be restricted, like, say, a sniper rifle to the recon class or something. Now, based on combing through the footage, it looks like there's about 8 assault rifles, 6 carbines, 8 SMGs, 8 LMGs, 5 DMRs, a sniper rifle, no shotgun, 1 pistol, and a handful of explosive gadgets like RPGs and M320s. Of course, this weapon count is just based on digging through footage. It's entirely possible that there's tons more weapons that are just locked behind progression or something like that. Now, on a personal level, and speaking outside of my content creator mentality, I don't necessarily need games to have just a plethora of guns to chew through. Often they don't add too much variety, and we had that Battlefield 4 syndrome of guns not feeling particularly interesting or unique because it just had so many guns it was hard to differentiate them or make them stand out in an interesting way. But one of the best compliments of having a ton of weapons is, one, you get to roleplay and set up your kit however you would imagine it and use your favorite weapon from whatever game or genre that you like, but also it adds a ton of progression, so there's a big upside to it as well. Now, as for some of the more nuanced or hidden details that I've seen in leaked footage, there's a few things that could have deeper mechanics to them. The smoke effects in general seem to be more volumetric and physically interactable than past Battlefield titles. Weapon fire, destruction, and explosions seem to push that smoke around a bit. It doesn't appear to be at the same level of interactivity as, say, Counter-Strike 2, but it would be cool to see this kind of mechanic turned into more of a realistic gameplay system, like being able to lessen or move smoke out of the way temporarily, especially if a helicopter could blow it out of the way when it's coming down for a low pass or a landing. Smoke grenades get used a ton in Battlefield since you have to cross a lot of open ground. They're extremely useful, and DICE have demoed a pretty complex smoke simulation system before, so maybe they're working on something even deeper than what's currently playable. Another cool thing I noticed was that armored vehicles have some new gameplay elements. The health is broken up into multiple segments now. Each of the bigger segments is probably the max amount of health that the driver can auto repair. So if you take enough damage to knock, say, 2.5 out of your 3-bar health system, you can only fully recover the remaining half segment. This is my guess anyway, as it would just line up with other game systems that have a tiered health mechanic. Now, the vehicle supply stations are back from Battlefield 5, and they can fully recover your health and ammo. Your main gun does have a limited ammo pool, which I like. It means you can't park your tank on the top of a cliff and rain down sniper fire indefinitely. You'll eventually have to go back and rearm. But your secondary weapons, like HMGs, seem to have unlimited ammo. Tanks also take physicalized damage, with big sections of their plating falling off when they take fire. At one point I saw the tread covers for the side of a tank get blown off. This is a great way to show what parts have already been damaged, and or could be a way of indicating that certain parts of vehicles are disabled. Or it could also indicate just how much health a vehicle has left. If you notice it's missing a ton of its armor, it might be on its last legs. Now, a cool detail I noticed is that there's a more interactive prompt for you to pick up kits of dead soldiers. You get a HUD element telling you what primary weapon they had and the ability to ping the kit for your teammates. Now, in terms of more obvious stuff, I think the updated deploy screen looks really solid. It's basically Battlefield 4's, but with a 3D map. You can zoom and ping the map while waiting to deploy, effectively turning you into a little bit of a squad commander while you're waiting for your deployment timer to finish up. You also get that very useful picture-in-picture view of the soldier or flag that you're going to deploy on. This is great for preventing you deploying into something that's about to die. Often vehicles can be on their last legs, you spawn into them and die immediately. Hopefully this will inform you before doing so. Now, each class has 3 loadout slots you can pick from as well, so you can quickly swap between class loadouts between lives. Now, a quality of life feature that I really wish we were seeing back is the vehicle visible timer, so that you can see how long a vehicle is going to take to respawn from the deployment screen. This can be super useful for knowing if just waiting another 5 or 10 seconds will get you a good transport vehicle so you can get back into the action quickly. It's been a feature in past titles, but absent from the more recent ones. Now, squad management is back with the ability to lock your squad and create a new one. I didn't see if the option to kick a player from your squad was available, but it does look like you can at least mute individual players. Now, stepping back and collating all of this footage and information, it seems like if you were hoping for a more grounded, gritty, and realistic Battlefield experience, DICE is looking to build the modernized version of BF3 and BF4, which I think would appeal to probably the biggest market of Battlefield gamers. There doesn't appear to be any specialist gadgets or sci-fi weaponry tech. It's all basic boots-on-the-ground gameplay with great-looking graphics and tons of destruction. Now that said, aside from the field spec system and some nuanced mechanics, it's hard to point out anything big that sets this title apart from either past Battlefield games or even what else is on the market today. And to be fair, and avoid trying to be too much of a hypocrite, it does drive me crazy when DICE tries to innovate too much or fix tons of stuff that isn't broken. So ideally, not reinventing those elements of the game that aren't broken is totally fine with me. But in terms of big, new, innovative wow factors, there's nothing here yet that quite highlights the gameplay to me. But maybe that's kind of the point, and also we have to remember that we're seeing leaked gameplay of Battlefield Labs. EA knew that this gameplay was going to leak. I talked about it in past videos, saying that it was probably even built in as part of their marketing strategy to build up natural, quote-unquote, hype around the game that wasn't EA trying to self-promote. So if they do have some big flashy feature, they're probably saving it for their own reveal trailer so that they can be the ones to kind of control that way that the new feature is perceived. Maybe that's the whole connected universe idea that they keep repeating during investors' calls. Maybe it's something else. We'll just have to wait and see. And everything shown so far does look quite cool. It looks very solid and grounded, kind of like the ideal game that I wish we got after, say, the Battlefield 4 franchise. And now that we're so many years after that fact and we're getting back to it, it feels a little too late in some regards. So I'm looking for that extra little bit of oomph, that extra little bit of wow factor. Now, something that I'm still very curious about is a lot of the back-end technology. How easy is it going to be to squad up with friends? This has gone from being very easy to very difficult in past Battlefield games, which has been mind-blowing considering it's sort of the point of the whole game. I'm also curious to see if team balance is going to be reworked, if they're going to have new tools to ensure fair and balanced game modes. Will progression be fun, or is it going to be tied to weird, annoying mission systems? And I think my concern here is fairly warranted, considering it's been one of the weaker aspects of a lot of past Battlefield games. It can really just turn into a lot of quality of life features that are missing that end up hampering the overall gameplay experience. Even if it's a great experience once you get into a game with friends and you're having an absolute blast, if the time period to get into a game and squad up with your buddies is longer than 10 minutes, then we've got a pretty big problem. Now, I'd be curious to know your thoughts on the gameplay that's been leaked so far. Is this the direction that you want from DICE? Do you want them to keep it grounded and not worry about crazy big, innovative, flashy features? Were you hoping for more from them? Do you want something completely different? Let me know in the comments. I'd be really curious. Also, if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe for more content like it, and if you want to see what Battlefield plays like in Arma Reforger, check out this video. It's actually pretty darn cool. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.